Welcome to the 94th installment of Ear to the Ground, the Land Stewardship Project's audio podcast on family farming, sustainable agriculture, local food systems, and local democracy. I'm Brian DeVore, editor of the Land Stewardship Letter. Who will farm the land in the future? That difficult question is grappled with in Look Who's Knockin', a professionally acted, one-act educational performance recently developed by the Land Stewardship Project. The play raises questions of land ethics and the moral dilemma posed by wanting to get top dollar for selling one's land while desiring to help the next generation of farmers get started farming. Created out of numerous interviews and real-world stories of both beginning and retiring farmers, the play uses humor, storytelling, and the common, everyday tension in an elderly farm couple's relationship to prompt personal reflection and community discussion in the audience. The play features Gerald and Eddie Dietrich, who over the past 50 years have built up an award-winning conservation farm. They are now struggling with whether to sell it to a large cash cropper in the neighborhood for top dollar or to give a young couple an opportunity to launch a new, diverse farming enterprise. Look Who's Knockin' was written by LSP Policy Program Organizer Doug Nopar and directed by LSP member farmer Eva Barr. At each of the play performances, LSP is providing resources and guidance for those landowners interested in learning more about renting or selling their land to a beginning farmer. This isn't the first time LSP has used a play to launch community discussion on a difficult subject. One day in the midst of the farm crisis of the early 1980s, Nancy Paddock went to her bedroom and began writing a play about one woman's feelings toward the land. Within a week, Planting in the Dust was completed and was eventually performed in communities throughout North America and even in Russia. Planting in the Dust features Annie, a 35-year-old woman who has returned to the farm her great-grandparents homesteaded. During the course of the play, she talks about her relationship with the land and her frustrations at the disregard for soil conservation her neighbor Jordan has. This critically acclaimed play was one of the first attempts to address the land stewardship issue from a young woman's point of view. Annie's experience helped open up discussion on a topic, land stewardship in this case, that many rural residents are otherwise hesitant to talk about in a public setting. It's hoped Look Who's Knockin' will have a similar impact, in this case allowing people to participate in a dialogue about an equally contentious issue, the future of family farming. In the next episode of Ear to the Ground, we will feature excerpts of Look Who's Knockin'. This edition of the program features a conversation I had recently with Doug Nopar and Eva Barr about Look Who's Knockin', what inspired the play, and how a dramatic, fictional performance can help communities deal with real-world problems.
So, Doug, I was wondering if you could give us a little background of what prompted you to write this play, kind of what the source material of this was.
A few things happened over the last 3-4 years. One is, we've now got almost 500 people that have been through the Farm Beginnings program over the last 14 years. And at the beginning of that program, most of the young farmers, either through their family or a neighbor or relative, they had a way to get onto the land. They had either a rental agreement or a partnership or something that they could step into. And the last few years, we've been hearing from more and more of those beginning farmers that they're having a really hard time renting or buying land. They don't have the connections with the family or in the community, and land prices are just out of sight, either for rent or for sale. So that was one thing we've been hearing a lot of. We heard a lot of those stories. We also heard more and more from some of the elder farmers who are members of LSP and who kind of lead some of our work on some of our committees, who are very committed to getting young people started, that we needed to change the conversation that happens down at the cafe or at the graduation party or whatever rural social gatherings. We needed to do something where people were talking about more than what'd you get for that land, or what did he get for that land, or how much did they rent for, with everybody kind of trying to one-up each other. That we needed a conversation to shift and for people to start thinking not only about how much they get, but about who they were helping get started farming. So those two things were coming at us pretty strongly, and we decided to try this out in the form of a play. And so really many of the lines and stories that are in the play are really drawn from longtime members of the organization. It's a collage, if you will, of what we've heard people say over the years. And so it's a matter of trying to get all that down and then get with Eva Barr, the director, who really has helped hone it into something a little more dynamic.
I know one of the main parts of this project is to have discussions after the plays. That's one of the, the main driver is to let's prompt some discussion, get some people in the community to talk about this. Does this make it much easier in a way for people to discuss things that may be very, very hard for them to discuss just coming at it cold?
Yeah, I think it kind of it breaks the ice. It creates the opening for this conversation that gives the permission, that kind of public permission for it to happen, that conversation to happen. And I mean, we're hoping a lot of people come to the play, but people will read about it in the paper too, and they might ask each other about it and start talking about it. And so hopefully that'll start right after the play performances right there in the room. And we're going to have at each of the performances a panel of at least one beginning farmer and one retiring farmer, who are beginning farmer talking about some of their hopes and aspirations, not only for themselves but for their community, and a retiring farmer talking about the importance of getting young people started. And in some ways that's to legitimate some of the things that are going on in the play. It's interesting, we did, over the course of about a year, we did about 30 interviews of people in the community around our Lewiston office. And when we asked people if they were hopeful about agriculture, the people who were LSP members or familiar with our Farm Beginnings program, they actually saw some glimmer of hope. The people who weren't very familiar with us, saw no hope for agriculture. And so it's really important for people to see, hey, there are some young farmers who want to start farming. The theater director from Brazil, this guy named Augusto Boal, he used to say, theater is the art of looking at ourselves. It's a real story, and we'll see how people respond to it.
From what I remember of Planting the Dust, it's really interesting to see this now. What are we, 25 years later? That was a discussion. It was a woman who was very distraught over the way land was being treated, the soil erosion in her community. But she wasn't really looking at, okay, am I going to be able to pass this farm on, so much as what is the shape of the farm going to be? In those intervening years, sustainable ag, we've made a lot of advancements. We've seen a lot of good systems put in place to help preserve that land. But now we've realized that sustainability is also about getting that land passed on to the next generation. Is that something you were thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, we've made a lot of progress on people didn't know anything about sustainable agriculture. We didn't know a whole lot ourselves. We just knew that something needed to be different 25 years ago. And so there have been a lot of advances, more people doing grazing, raising hogs without antibiotics, grazing their pasture, raising produce, direct selling to customers, all that kind of interesting stuff, more diversity on a few farms. But unfortunately, this land consolidation has continued at an ever-growing pace, and it really threatens the ability for this form of agriculture that we want to see for it to flourish.
Now, Eva, my question for you is, you can have a meeting and invite people and say, we're going to talk about the transfer of land to the next generation, and it may or may not work.
Right.
Something like this can really, seems like it could be a real tool for spawning some real lively discussion and getting people to kind of maybe come out of their shells a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, being a theater artist, I believe in the power of the live moment to inspire further conversation. And often you'll find characters reflecting your very sentiments, your very gestures, your very, glance across the horizon, which I think these actors are doing really adeptly. And that was our goal with this, is to try to cast in such a way that people would see themselves in the characters. And once people see themselves in the characters, then they're, of course, taken to their own stories and their own histories and their own very contemporary moment. And so hopefully, it will do just that.
You're a little bit of the younger farmer who came,
Right.
who were getting started. Yeah. That must kind of give you a little bit of, some of this stuff really hits home, I think.
was that somebody was asking me, another journalist, I guess, was talking to me about, what my relationship or what my perspective on the piece is and why I would have an interest in supporting a piece like this. And I guess, I'm in the camp that believes that the more farmers we have on the countryside, the healthier the land's going to be in the long run, as long as, people are approaching it responsibly. And so any piece that can raise issues about farming can be potent. And this is a digression, but we show films in our barn in the summer, and every year we try to show as many that raise issues about stewardship of the land to the degree that we can, or that take a treatment of farming. And ideally, we like to find those that have a positive bent. But they are hard to find, and they're becoming harder and harder to. We were getting a lot of documentary pieces, but less fictional treatments of people and their relationships to land. And that's disturbing. So being part of the creation of a piece that is reflecting on choices that we've made and many other people that we know have made is worthwhile.
Well, it must be exciting, too, for somebody like you comes from a theater, has worked in theater, to maybe see maybe a little mini revitalization of it here in a rural area. Yeah. And, honestly, this is kind of, it's most important to me to bring my work home and into my own community, and then to be able to do it with issues that are burning for so many. And that is, to say accessing land is a burning issue for many, feels good.
For more information on Look Who's Knockin', see www.landstewardshipproject.org. If you have comments or suggestions about this podcast, contact Brian DeVore at bdevore@landstewardshipproject.org, or you can call 612-722-6377. Thanks to Laura Borgendale, Western Minnesota musician, for Ear to the Ground's theme music. And a special thank you to all of Land Stewardship Project's members who make initiatives such as this podcast possible. If you're not a member, visit landstewardshipproject.org to learn how you can support LSP. Thanks for listening.